Everyone, Ryan Travis back with you guys from Night Services. We're going to be going over the preliminary inspection in this video. And what the preliminary inspection is the technician arriving to a property for a carrier and performing a property inspection prior to doing the virtual collaboration with an inside desk adjuster. This preliminary inspection kind of sets the table to retrieve the documentation on the property, but also to kind of be thorough prior to calling it in with the adjuster, so you can explain what you're seeing, what you're observing, and you can give that information to the inside desk adjuster so they can make a coverage determination or an assessment call for potential damages. What you're going to see a lot of in our videos is observed language, like observed, appears, potential, possible, because we are just the inspector. We're kind of really just the photographer. We're out there to document the property in its entirety, but we're not out there to make the actual assessment calls. We might see missing shingles, and we all, can pretty much determine, hey, that's wind damage. However, that's not our call. Somebody on the inside, the acting adjuster that is assigned to that claim, they might see it differently. So it's important that we provide this documentation for the way we see it, but we're not making the actual call on it. So in our previous videos, we kind of went over how to document the exterior elevations and the roofing system to basically give a general basis to how to set the claim up, how to document the claim. If you're going to be inspecting properties, there's going to be some heavy critics out there, some of your veteran people that possibly watch this video, and they see a lot of things that they say, hey, you should have done this differently, I would do this differently. And everybody has an opinion on how to do the property inspection. However, this is just our method. We're not saying that our method is the way to go, it's the end all be all, but we just find it best, and it works best with the carriers and inside adjusters when we perform a preliminary inspection prior to calling that claim in through the virtual application and doing a true collaboration. There are some people out there that prefer to do the virtual collaboration upon arrival to the property. So as soon as they hop out the vehicle, they go ahead and call the claim in, and they collaborate with an inside adjuster and uncover everything together. We find it a little bit better that let me say this. We feel like we can be a little bit more thorough and provide a little bit better customer service for that homeowner if we walk around the property. We kind of assess the property for what we're seeing, and that way we can have the information ready, and then we can really go over it in detail with the inside adjuster so they can make the call and they can get their information that is needed. Remember this. You are retrieving documentation, so for somebody who has never been to that property, to allow them to write an estimate and actually write a legitimate estimate, a good estimate, to return that homeowner back to the condition they were in prior or before that loss occurred. But it's important that the documentation is detailed, is thorough. That way they can give a proper estimate. Now, there's always going to be some things as far as doing the repairs and what the adjuster deems as necessary repairs for what they're seeing. There's always possibly going to be a discrepancy between a contractor and adjuster on the actual maybe squares of the property, the total size of the property, or some things that are needed in order to perform certain repairs. Some things like your counter flashing, step flashing, apron flashing, that the adjuster might not deemed or put in the estimate for the removal and replace of, and the contractor's like, hey, in order for me to remove these shingles, I'm going to tear the counter flashing, I need those items in that estimate. So it's important that we document and show all of this information. That way somebody can always refer back to some photos. That way they can get some more information if that virtual call is not truly successful. Now, you can call in and actually perform an inspection with an adjuster and you believe that you've got a lot of good photos and good information when you're doing the virtual call itself. But remember, somebody's on the other end of a FaceTime application and they're trying to take photos. Once they download their photos, their photos might be blurry, or they might not come in at all, or they might not get the photo that they thought they got. So our documentation is more or less some backup information. And that's why it's important that we use the language that we use: observed, appears, potential, possible. That way, if somebody needs to refer back to our documentation, they're making the assessment call, the coverage call. We've just got additional documentation in there with better, maybe higher quality images that they can use to, make their call. So returning back to the actual report here and what the technician is doing in the property inspection, we've walked around the exterior elevations. We've documented potential wind damage to the left elevation siding, and it's vinyl siding. I know on this property inspection, there was straight lap siding, there was a double 4 and a double 5. So, the technician recognized that, but you didn't really see him break out a tape right then and there and measure it. That's going to be more for the virtual call. So, like I said, some heavy critics might say, hey, I noticed during your walk around there was different size and siding. It's not saying that we didn't get that information, because obviously we're talking about it now. But, we notated that information on our clipboard, and then when we make that virtual call and we're being really thorough, we're going to explain to the adjuster, hey, it appears that there's 2 different size siding here. There's a double 4 straight lap, and then there's a double 5 straight lap. And then we're going to break out a tape and kind of measure and show the difference in sizes. Accessing the roofing system, we're going to get some of what we consider our E-photos. That's going to be your shingle gauge, drip layer. Is there felt? Is there ice and water? Some people might say, hey, get the overhang for the estimate, or for the eagle view. That way the measurements are correct. Once again, that might be something that we do in the virtual call itself, or it might be requested by the inside adjuster that we perform that. What we're doing now is kind of a thorough inspection with some basic information. Once again, we're not the acting adjuster. We're kind of table setting, the claim. We're getting information prepared and ready for an inside adjuster, and we're kind of doubling up on the claim, so to speak. We're walking around it, we're seeing what we're seeing, and that way when we make the call, we can provide a lot more information, because we've already seen kind of what's going on. For instance, in this photo right here, the technician is documenting the predominant pitch and then also a secondary pitch of the roofing systems. The front porch was at a low slope system. It's teetering right below a 212. Sometimes the technician will document, hey, this is 212 and below. Kind of goes against manufacturing specifications for a composition shingled system on a low slope pitch like this, due to ponding or pooling water. But then again, he just might document that that's the secondary pitch, and then when he makes the virtual call, he'll notate that and explain to the adjuster, hey, this was kind of under a 212 pitch. The insurers kind of reported a little bit of leaking coming through the soffit when it's raining. Well, that's some information that adjuster can use when they talk to the homeowner at the end of the virtual call and say, hey, Ryan or whoever told me you had some leaks going on. You've seen some water coming out through your soffit there over the front porch. Just want to inform you that you've got a shingled system up there, and you potentially need more of a system that has, a barrier for ponding or pooling water, because water can't truly transition off a slope or a pitch with a low slope like that. Another situation with that low slope and that front porch system is you've got older and newer shingles. So the technician has documented a 25-year composition shingle for the front porch system, but then when it transitions into the actual dwelling roofing system, the predominant pitch, it changes to a 20-year composition shingle. you might hear some people, say, hey, oh, it's an asphalt shingle. It is an asphalt shingle, but it's a composition shingle because it's comprised of, or it's compiled of multiple materials, which makes up the actual shingle course itself, or the material itself. It's got a fiberglass base mat, which is in the center of the shingle, and then you've got your asphalt or bitumen that is on both sides of that fiberglass base mat, and then you got your granules on top of the asphalt or bitumen. One kind of protects the other. It's the assembly of the shingle course. Your fiberglass base mat bonds the asphalt. The asphalt bonds the granules, and the granules reflect sunlight, reflect UV rays. So they all kind of work together to protect the roofing system. But here you see the technician has documented that the older shingle is a 20-year composition shingle. Once again, it's comprised of multiple materials that make up that shingle, but the shingle gauge is gauging basically what that product was sold as. Was it a 20-year shingle? Was it sold as a 25-year shingle? And that is basically the material warranty of those shingles. In this photo here, it still looks like it's on the front slope. The technician is also documenting that it appears to have multiple layers, which kind of is, a lot of people might say it's a built-up roofing system, and it kind of is, but it's just basically multiple layers. But it appears that there was an old organic shingle that is at the very bottom of that, and then it looks like somebody kind of redecked, possibly with plywood over top of that. So they've taken the old organic, they left that shingle on there, and then they put sheathing on top of that, and then they re-shingled on top of that with a 20-year composition shingle. Now that organic shingle, it's kind of the same situation. It's still asphalt, but it's got an organic base mat, and one way to tell the difference between that is to take some of the shingle out, if possible. If some of it's deteriorated around a corner, tear it in half and see if you see any kind of fiberglass strands. But it's important to document multiple layers right there, and then sheathing on top of that, because in efforts to write a good estimate, and you're going to replace that roofing system, all that stuff needs to be torn off. All of it needs to be documented. Say, hey, it's not just a shingle layer that you're tearing off sheathing as well. So it's important that is produced in the estimate to be more of a fair estimate, because if the roofers are going to come out there and tear all that off, they're going to spend a lot more time tearing off all that material, and they might need maybe a larger size dump to make sure all that material fits in there. Like in previous videos, we're going to do our roofing system overviews. We're basically going to show the layout of the roofing system in its entirety. You've seen kind of show a quick way to document that is to basically copy and paste your roofing system overviews, and kind of show that you're panning counterclockwise and showing the roofing system in its entirety. That, like I said, if somebody wants to refer back to where some of the test squares were performed at, where some of the damages were at, they can go back to your roofing system overviews and kind of see the layout of the roofing system itself. Those are your roofing appurtenances. It's important to document those. Once again, if you're going to replace that roofing system, you need to replace the appurtenances, and it kind of refers back to the argument I had between the discrepancy earlier. If you had some counter flashing, step flashing, apron flashing that needed to be replaced, and wasn't put in the previous estimate, you could go back to the photos and say, the contractor's saying, they're going to tear the counter flashing up around the chimney when they go to replace the roofing system. Oh, okay, I see. There's some mastic over the counter flashing, and it's on top of the shingle. So yeah, they possibly would tear that. I know that's not the case in this video, just kind of explaining, the importance of documenting all the roofing appurtenances or roofing components, and kind of getting overviews of them. On this one, it looked like roofing appurtenance, and then it was a furnace stack, and then you got to document the size of your rain cap. So on this one, It shows that there was some impressions in that cap itself, but there wasn't really impressions of that other smaller cap that was on the front slope. Once again, that can be because some of the damage is older, or that cap on the front slope is a little bit harder material, a little bit more dense to the cap itself. Technicians kind of showing size. Didn't really talk about this earlier, but we're always drawing correlation with what we're seeing at the property. If we were walking around the exterior elevations and you were documenting hail, look at this. You're looking at the sides. Let's say you had some aluminum siding, to all those elevations, and you were observing dime to nickel size impressions, collateral damage. When you get to looking at your shingles and you draw your test square out, you can draw some correlation with some of the same size markings that you're seeing for your collateral, and draw some correlation saying, hey, this is what I found to the siding, and it's the same size markings to the shingles, because not all hail is truly a dense stone that's going to cause these insane fractures. We all in this industry talk about the distinction of hail damage and what an engineer might refer to as hail damage as an actual fracture to the fiberglass base mat, and what an adjuster might say, hey, I'm not really looking for a fracture of the mat. Has it displaced granules? Has it exposed the bitumen or the asphalt? Where that can deteriorate over time because it has been exposed and hail has hit it. So it's important to document this information. Once again, it's a gray area, and not all hail is that easy to determine. And we've all been on roofing systems where we're like, it's some pea and maybe a little bit, maybe closer to marble size stuff, but I really don't know if it's damaged the shingle. Well, you're always justifying the claim with your information. Once again, you're just the inspector. You don't have to worry about making that call, but you do need to kind of set the information up. You do need to justify the possibility of, hey, this could potentially be hail damage to these shingles. And once again, this is why, because of my collateral. Going back to the photos, in this one, the technician is illustrating the pipe jack. It doesn't really have like a neoprene collar or a neoprene flange. It's basically just a PVC pipe, and it's got some mastic around the bottom of it, built up, kind of fabricated as a collar to prevent water from running straight down into the system, or into the dwelling and interior of the home. That is your riser with your weatherhead, and a lot of those will kind of be referred to as split boots. It looks like a neoprene collar on that one with an actual metal flange. It's important to document that, because once again, if you're going to replace that roofing system, you need to replace your components or your materials around the components. So documenting that. Get through your roofing appurtenances. So that's kind of how we do it. We do our e-photos when we come to the ladder. Then we do our pitch gauges. We'll document, is there step flashing, counter flashing, apron flashing. We go up to the very ridge, far left, and we'll pan counterclockwise doing our overviews. Then we go in to our roofing appurtenances and we document those in order. It's easy to say this. When you're doing these property inspections, you're telling a story. You're laying a story out. And if you kind of know the basics of how people write estimates, or how, insurance carriers want their adjusters to write estimates, you can kind of understand the reason for why the documentation is set up the way it is. Once again, this is kind of our method that we find works best. We've had a lot of feedback saying, hey, we like how your documentation is set up. We like what you guys are doing. It works well for us. Once again, you might have your own style, own method, and you might be, a monster at documenting a property. We just, this works best for us. So just for any heavy critic out there that's going to, kind of knock this video, say, oh, you should have done this, should have done that. We understand that everybody has their difference of opinion, but this is what works well for us, and we're just out there to do the best we can. We don't claim to be anybody special. We just work hard, and we try to get everybody as much information as we possibly can. Those photos right there, the technician is illustrating some of the rain or water diverters that's at the end of the woven valley. That's kind of to help water shed off that roofing system and kind of divert into the gutters, and not kind of wrap around in behind where that gutter transitions into the roofing system and kind of run down the roof wall transition, where it has an opportunity to actually enter inside the home. Going into your slopes, you can see the technician really doesn't have hail equals this, wind equals this. Once again, we're just the inspector. We're setting the claim up. Even though we've got those missing shingles on the front slope, and we know they're probably going to be called wind, to us it's potential. It's potential wind. It's possible wind. That the inside adjuster, they're going to make that determination. So once they make that determination, they say, yes, Ryan, that's wind damage. Go ahead and mark it. How many you got there? Well, ma'am, sir, we've got 12. Okay, go ahead and mark that down for us. After that, we will go back and retrieve the damage counts. But that is how we kind of set it up, and we're not making the assessment call on that property. So documenting right here, documenting the potential wind damage here, kind of showing the decking, raising the shingles up, showing, hey, they're not sealed down. This whole area or whole section has been raised up. You see the technician right there documenting potential wind damage. Technician is also going to write a temp repair. Let me explain this one because this is a good one for a lot of people. There's a prior repair and there's temporary repair. Prior repair is something that's been done in the past by the homeowner to replace shingles, to prevent damage, and it's not something that they maybe deemed needed to be an insurance claim. They just kind of wanted the roofing system repaired. Or we've seen a lot of cases where somebody's going to sell a home and they see that they got a missing shingle, and in order to get through closing and everything, at the end of selling the property, they need to replace the missing shingle. So in fact, they do that. We call that a prior repair. It's been repaired at some point in time in the past. Now, more or less, a temporary repair is something that has been done recently, and very recently within the storm period, to protect the home from any kind of further water intrusion. So it's important to document the difference, because a prior repair might penalize somebody, being that if you're in a state with state statutes of reasonable uniformed appearance. The carrier might say, hey, somebody's repaired it in the past, and they didn't really care for matching, so should we really owe to match the shingle? A temporary repair can basically almost be like a tarp. You're putting it up there to protect the property until somebody can get out and actually assess the property. So the difference between that is very important. Is it a prior repair or is it a temporary repair? You've seen the technician earlier on that front slope document BT. The brittleness test wasn't performed. We're going to wait till we get online and do the virtual collaboration with an adjuster. That way they can observe us performing the BT. It's important to let them watch the BT itself. Let them see you breaking the cohesive seal. Let you see where your area for your BT is performed at, breaking the cohesive seal, raising the shingle at a 45-degree angle, and seeing if there's any kind of granule break, mat tear, anything like that, that would determine that brittleness test has in fact failed. Moving to I believe it's on the right slope, technician is illustrating alternating laps unsealed. The reason for that, I mean, some people refer to it as zippering, some people refer to it as racking. The technician is basically saying, hey, you know, every alternate lap, every alternate corner is unsealed due to potential installation and the cohesive seal just kind of wearing over time. Some of the other anomalies that were marked were mechanical damage, spot defects. Those are okay to mark because you're not really marking something that is potential. You know, there's jagged tears, stuff like that. It's not anything that we're going to refer to as storm-related damage. Not to say that it's not, because we're still going to show the insurance adjuster or the acting adjuster what those anomalies are. They might determine, hey, you know, that looks like that could potentially be wind damage. Okay, you know, we will do our counts once we do the virtual collaboration. This is the north-facing slope or the rear slope of the property. The technician is documenting extensive lichen throughout that slope. So this is a slope that doesn't receive as much sunlight, and you can kind of really see the age of the roofing system itself when you've got that much dead lichen, that much algae built up, and that, you know, that slope had a tremendous amount of lichen throughout it. Some of it was dead, or I'll say the majority of it was dead. Some of it was still appeared to be living. That lichen can cause some damage to the shingles over time, as that it actually feeds on the granules of the shingle, and it can actually almost it pretty much can look like hail damage once that lichen kind of eats into the shingles, and then weathering kind of washes away the dead lichen. It looks like, you know, some of the granules will be displaced and gone. The asphalt binder mat will be exposed. Once again, the technician is documenting all the lichen growth on that slope. Just keep in mind, everything's being set up. You know, you are setting the claim up. You are kind of assessing what you're seeing without calling damages. In a way, you kind of are, but you're not making the overall call, and that's what's important. The inside adjuster is the one that makes that call. So you're setting the claim up, you're documenting the property in its entirety, and then when you go through with the virtual collaboration, you're going to document the property even more. Some people don't like these virtual assist or virtual ladder assist. I really think that they're good for the industry, especially if you've got some inspectors out there that, you know, are really truly out there to document it the way they see it, and document the damages the way they are, and really not trying to manipulate anything or kind of manipulate any photos. You know, a lot of people refer back to it is what it is. Technician is on the left slope here, documenting all of the wind damage. You'll see the vertical dashes in the shingles. The universal kind of language for wind damage or notations or annotations on a roofing system are a straight horizontal line through the shingle. The vertical lines just kind of illustrate, hey, potential wind damage. These are potential wind damage, and the adjuster is going to make that call once again when we perform the virtual collaboration. Once again, you see the technician here, you know, documenting that this is a temporary repair, and that's probably information that was given to the technician from the insured or from the contractor saying, hey, you know, somebody just got up here and you know, recently and put some of the shingles back, or we had a bundle left over, and we try to put some of the shingles back. I know in this case the homeowner told me his son got up there and put some shingles back, so, you know, I made it a point to make sure it was documented as a temporary repair. This photo is the stagnation region of the shingle. You can gauge the age of a shingle based on the wear around the stagnation region, or what some consider the butt ends of the shingle. That is where you got your cantilever area, or the bottom butt end of the shingle, so you can see the keys to the 3 tabs. where the very bottom of the shingle will have wear from just basically water and weathering over years. That's kind of where the water kind of laps over the shingle at. Usually you can measure this area 1/16, 2/16, 3/16, 4/16 of an inch and determine the actual age. So you can see some of the wear right above the fingertips of the technician right there. It appeared to be around 2/16 to 3/16 of an inch. It's generally indicative. I mean, it got close to 4/16 of an inch, but it's generally indicative of about a 14 to 22-year-old roofing system. We try to move in increments of 8, so you can have, you know, a 4 to 12-year-old system, a 8 to 16-year-old system, a 14 to 22-year-old system, and once you get above 20 years, you know, that's that roofing system's, you know, it's been on there for a while. It's getting close to the end of its life, unless it's like a lifetime series. Technician is documenting the brittleness test, shingle selection, and what the current temperature is outside, saying, hey, you know, the current temperature based off the protocols of the carrier. We're allowed to do the brittleness test when temperatures are 45 and above. So you're going to flex the shingle at a 45 degree, and the temperature outside needs to be above 45 degrees. So it's kind of a 45. Remember, the number 45 is kind of your basis for a brittleness test. At the end of the property inspection, the technician is going to be documenting all the guttering system, any damages to the guttering system, any kind of debris field or debris in the gutters. And it's important to get that documentation as well. And this is pretty much the end of the video. Just want to thank everybody for tuning in. Hope this was a little bit more information, and please subscribe. We're going to keep putting videos up so you guys can watch them and get a feel for what we do. Want to thank everybody, and have a good day.